Welcome to NEK-TV Rocks. Guests today are Lisa Daigle-Farney and Martha Braithwaite. Welcome.
For having us.
And Lisa and Martha are going to talk to us about the Troy and North Troy Promise community. Promise is something that we're sort of struggling with here in Newport. We're learning about it, and you guys are ahead of us. Tell us what happened, how it works.
Well, Martha, do you want to speak about what it is to begin
Sure.
with, and then we can talk about how our process?
So the Promise Community Initiative is an initiative that's being available to communities across Vermont. There's a few different cohorts that are participating in this project. And it's basically an opportunity to really dive into your community and take a holistic approach to early childhood wellness and early childhood well-being with the goal towards kindergarten readiness. What in your community will help young children be ready for kindergarten when they start? So
it's focused on young children.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. And so every community, that looks a little bit different. Every community has a very unique proposal that's based on what resources exist in their community, what the needs are in their community, and what people really are excited to be a part of building. So
Who funds it?
it's funded. It's a federal grant that came to Vermont called the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge. It's administered through the Child Development Division of AHS, Agency of Human Services. So there's a really fantastic team based all over the state that is our technical assistance team. They've been a part of shepherding other Promise communities through the same process, and they're great at learning from what worked in the first cohort and maybe what didn't and adjusting. So we are part of this second group of communities. St. Johnsbury was one of the first, and then North Troy is part of the second cohort, and the Newport City cohort that you mentioned, they're part of the third cohort.
Right. How did you start?
So we started by having a community cafe, inviting community members, and we had a small group of us who brought that together. And initially, when you when you have grant money, people get really excited and want to do big projects.
Yeah.
And of course, North Troy is really suffering right now. They don't even have a grocery store, so things have kind of gone downhill there. So people are excited about revitalizing, so they come up with these grandiose ideas. But we realized one of the ideas was a community center that the money would not be sustainable, and the project was too big. So we started to look at what exists in North Troy that we might be able to expand on, make better, put some money in that would be great for families, kids and families. So we focused on 3 areas. One was recreation, community connections, and food insecurity, which is a big one in North Troy. One mom at the meeting said, "We can't even buy an apple in this town." So we were fortunate to have someone who donated some property and had a community garden there that needs work, so we're going to put some money into that. We're going to expand the garden, have a tool shed, put a fence around the garden. North Troy has a beautiful rec path that they had gotten a grant for years ago, but it's kind of gone under, hasn't been maintained. So we are going to have somebody brush hog that. We're going to revitalize that, which is up by the ball field in the American Legion.
Yeah.
And we're also going to put in a small playground, so when games are going on for older kids, younger kids will have a playground to play in. So that's pretty exciting. What else? And we're also expanding and doing some work at the tennis courts in North Troy, where there's an ice rink that is totally volunteered by a couple. And the ice shack needs a lot of work, so we're going to paint that. We're going to put some benches out there. We're expanding the parking. And we're also doing a path that will go down to the tennis court that will be accessible to strollers and wheelchairs, which it currently isn't. So we're excited about that.
How many of you are involved?
So right now we have about 8 to 12 on our committee, but we do have a very core strong group that meets regularly to keep this conversation and work going. So we were just in the parade on the 3rd.
I saw the photos.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun, and it was a way for us to kind of get the word out about Promise Community and talk to some legislators and local folks in the community. So that was a fun event.
You do have one legislator who lives right in the middle of your community.
Yes, we do.
I assume he's involved.
Well, he's not totally involved, but
He
he's
will be, right?
He will be. We're hoping. And,
He'll watch this and he'll be guilt-tripped.
He's very well aware of the project, so.
I think one of the keys transition moments for us. I mean,
Yeah.
we wrote this initial grant proposal to say, hey, North Troy would like the opportunity to be a Promise community last summer, and started working in October. And the group that initiated the project was really, as a BBF regional coordinator, reaching out to other agencies that serve North Troy. And it took a few months, but there was a tipping point where our group became half parents and grandparents who live in North Troy,
Yeah.
and half
Agencies.
representatives of agencies who serve. And that was really key to making the project real.
Right.
Was like, hey, I'm a mom and my kids want to be able to play, and
Yeah.
this is what we need to be able to make
Yeah.
this a livable community. And so that was really important.
Yeah.
It
You're
took
so
a few
right.
false starts to get there. A few of the first community events we tried to do were like literally the coldest day in the winter, 30 below. We tried to do a sledding party and it was 30 below and icy. So that didn't work so much, but we stuck with it. And
We had
and
a
it
couple
was-
family fun days that were
Yeah.
very well attended, and we had a good time with families, so.
So it was probably like April that we really broke through and had a committee that had good representation from both community members, people that lived there, and agencies that had connections to different resources. So
How many of these projects are actually off the ground? I mean, do you have shovels in the dirt yet for the community
No.
garden?
no,
Not yet. We've gotten some estimates for the work to be done, so we just had to submit our budget for all these projects, and so that has been done.
yeah. So we'll get some feedback and we'll get a chance to review it, and then if everything goes well, we'll start work on the projects in September.
Okay, so things like the garden won't be productive this
Right.
year.
But we will be able to, we want to purchase some small bikes for preschoolers that they can use on the rec path. And we plan to have a shed there where we can keep those there so small children can start biking and getting out on the
That's
rec
great.
path. So just an incentive to use the rec path.
So are you looking for donations, for example, of bicycles that kids have grown out of? 'Cause
Absolutely.
You know how fast they grow them.
Absolutely, yes.
That's
yes.
great.
This was a conversation at our last meeting, is when are we ready to, so the funding is up to $150,000. It's a one-time sort of seed money to seed a project. And so then you start thinking about what are all the ways we can make this money go farther? Is that by
Right.
getting people to donate? Is that by getting people to step in for phase 2? So we will definitely be going to the community, going to
Yeah.
different businesses to ask for donations.
Particularly as there's no way of guaranteeing that money will continue coming.
Exactly. And as part of the, the grant, we are hiring a coordinator who will work, I don't know how many hours, I can't remember, but to make sure this stuff gets off the ground, someone who's familiar with the community and can make sure these projects continue. So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
And also really embed sort of that early childhood approach. It's great that there's a ball field, but the older kids use the ball field,
Mhm.
and there's a skating rink and basketball courts, but older kids use the basketball courts.
Yeah.
So a coordinator is going to be able to really look at what would it take for this to be usable for young children.
Right.
So we'll buy smaller skates, or we'll buy some jogging strollers, and then do some programming so that people are invited to come out and participate with their neighbors in something.
Yeah.
That's
So it's sort of like I'm going to use the word low budget, but I mean that in a positive way, not a derogatory way.
mhm.
It's like a low budget rec department,
Right.
which is really cool.
And we've had a member from Head Start, the preschool, and an early child care provider join us. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have that preschool age
Yeah.
presence.
Because I assume that North Troy and Troy, just like everywhere else up here, are struggling with affordable childcare.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that was one of the original concerns, and we identified, we had a few community meetings where we just have walls and walls and walls of brainstormed ideas about a community center, about a child care center, about things that we would love to see happen in North Troy.
Right.
That this particular funding opportunity wasn't the right fit for that, because
Right.
it's not enough money to put in a huge center, and it's not sustainable. But we're also definitely starting those conversations, and hopeful that some of those conversations will continue, beyond
Yeah, I
this.
mean, that's a conversation. It's a really important one, and it's for the whole of the Northeast Kingdom.
Right,
But
exactly.
Somehow there's got to be a way for and I think us as a community do understand, but to make it a bigger conversation about the importance of front loading.
Exactly.
Because if we don't invest in very young children, preferably at the prenatal stage,
Exactly.
then we've really created a mess for ourselves further down the road.
I mean, I like what you said about a low budget rec center, because I think we look at some of the statistics about our region, and we look at health outcomes, and we look at, and we're always, Orleans County is always right on the bottom,
Yeah.
right? And it can look so intimidating to, like, what would it take to turn the curve on community well-being? And what has been so fantastic about this opportunity with the North Troy community is really to drill down on that and realize that it can be really simple. It can be really simple things like having a nature path that
Right.
you get out and walk. I mean, what makes, Lisa's been in the field twice as long as I have, but what makes for strong children is strong connections to,
Right.
caregivers, that you're outside, that you're doing things that are fun. It's not rocket science. These are things that are in our
Right.
reach that we can
And
do
affordable
together.
for families.
Yeah, and could somebody, for example, from the elementary school, take the kids for a walk on that
Right.
path as
Exactly.
part of their lunch break or recreation time, or as part of an actual lesson, because there's so much to learn along the path.
Exactly. And then we want to have, along with the community garden, just some workshops around cooking and, making homemade soups with vegetables and things that are easy and not intimidating for families to be able to produce for themselves.
I
So-
bet you have those resources in that community.
Oh, I think we do. Yes, I think we do. So-
Long ago, I used to work in that community. I was there as a visiting nurse, going into people's homes,
Oh.
and you have some awesome
Yes,
cooks there.
yes. Yeah, so we're looking at multi-generational tier.
Yeah.
That's really our goal.
Because those are skills that, if they're not grabbed fast, will disappear.
Right.
You have some very resourceful people there.
Yeah, there's some wonderful people in that community.
Yeah.
So we're just going to access what we have and strengthen it and try to support it and get people out moving and having
Yeah.
some fun.
And it really sounds as though you've managed to engage community, which, from where I sit, is the really important thing. It's been very strange for me going to a lot of community-type meetings and only seeing, quote, professionals there.
Yes.
And as
yes.
somebody who is no longer a professional, it
Right.
is really weird, and it's strange watching the focus be on the professional and what the professional thinks the community needs.
Exactly.
Whereas it's the community who knows what they need.
And we've tried to be really conscious and respectful of that and bringing community in to let us know, what would you like to see here? What do you need? Because it's really easy for us, as you said, as professionals to go in and have some great ideas, but it's really nice to hear from the families, and they're the
It's
cue.
also really disempowering
Exactly.
if the experts are the ones speaking. And yet
Exactly.
the experts are not the experts. They don't
Exactly.
live there. That's
Exactly.
not actually true. Obviously, you guys do live in that community. Or
that's-
close to it.
We don't. I
You
mean, I
don't?
live in
thought you
Newport
did.
Center.
She lives close by.
So I'm very familiar with the
Yeah.
community, though, yeah.
But that's been my favorite part of the project, is really getting to be just a facilitator.
Yeah.
I get to show up with the markers and the flip chart paper and,
Oh, the
and an
fun
agenda,
stuff.
and the ideas come from other people, and then I
Yeah.
get to sort of back. It's like, how do we make all this work? And we really want to build something, this opportunity that's going to be utilized. And so it's for somebody that lives 30 miles away to come in and say, I think this is what you need, and then build
Yeah,
it,
joke.
it probably won't get utilized. So
No.
getting families, getting kids involved in doing the work themselves, I feel like that sort of
Yeah.
is that insurance policy that is something that people will continue to
Are there
access.
underused buildings in the community that could be adapted in some way? Or
There are,
borrowed?
and we have explored those.
Yeah.
There's a big church, there's, an empty store. But again, some of those buildings need an incredible amount of work
Sure.
that would be beyond the budget that we have to do this, so.
Mhm.
If anybody's an expert in that area and wants to put forth a big chunk of money to revitalize a building where, the vision is absolutely there, it's gonna take a little bit more time to get the resources to
Sure.
match that vision.
And we keep hearing, please bring a store back, which is, beyond what we can do, but the community is really missing having a grocery store.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was a really significant store. It had everything.
It did, and some people don't have transportation, so
Right.
driving to Newport to get an apple or, fresh
Yeah.
fruit is
And with respect to Dollar General, it doesn't cut it.
Exactly, exactly, in terms of healthy food
No.
for families. So that's why the community garden and getting people excited about growing their own food. We're hoping that
So
will-
somebody, for example, with a van could bring food in and
Mhm.
distribute it that way. Maybe work
Exactly.
out a deal with a supermarket or
Yep.
Newport Natural.
We talked about maybe, folks who have lots of extra stuff in their garden coming to the community garden that we're going to have and having a little farmer's market. And it wouldn't have to be huge, and we could have kids work at it, which
Mhm.
would be really fun for them. And, with folks in the community helping them, I think that
Yeah.
would be.
I mean, there is still time to grow some stuff.
Yes, yes. And there are a few things there. Greenmount Farm to School has been involved.
Yeah.
So they've got some things planted there. Caroline, who's been the AmeriCorps worker, has
Mhm.
been a wonderful asset to us because she's right in the school working with kids and working with Head Start in the preschool. So she's been wonderful. So we're hoping that relationship will continue even after Carolyn
Yeah.
moves on.
Yeah. It's sort of tough because you can see you can taste the next steps.
Exactly.
And it's
Yeah.
just how do you get that
Yeah.
bit?
So I can make a plug right now for our next meeting is July 17th, and our next few meetings, we're going to really focus on one area at a time. So our
Mhm.
July 17th meeting, sounds like you should come, you have some great ideas. It's going to be very focused on food security
Yeah.
and having some folks from outside of North Troy who have knowledge of food pantries and community gardens and programs come and speak to our group about what has worked other places. And so we're trying to not just to connect the community, to connect our steering committee to resources across the region who can,
Yeah.
so we can learn from, not reinvent the wheel. Let's learn from what
Right.
worked in Hardwick and let's learn the
Island
lessons that
Pond.
they learned in Island Pond to sort of get a head start on.
So
on
Martha's
Troy
connected with
project.
someone in Hardwick who will be
Yeah.
coming to visit us because they've done some great work and just to try to guide us in the right direction. So
Yeah.
we're excited about that.
They have a program at their community gardens called Grow Your Own,
Mhm.
where they do workshops, monthly workshops, helping people really dig into having their own garden, or people that aren't connected to community gardens can come and learn how to make sourdough bread or learn how to do something. So also connect to Green Mountain Farm to School. I mean, I think we're learning that just the key to really sustainable work that has an impact is that collaboration, is how are we there are a lot of resources in the Northeast Kingdom working on food, so how do we bring those to
Yeah.
bear to
Yeah, and the Northeast Kingdom is really an amazing area. I mean, it seems so isolated, and in a sense we are, but there's so much that happens here.
Exactly.
And yet there's so little communication, so few people know what even the next community is doing.
Exactly.
I mean, what is there that's happening in Glover that Troy and North Troy can benefit from?
Yeah.
What is there that's happening in Craftsbury?
Right, and what I see is the opportunity of doing this kind of work in the social sector in the Northeast Kingdom. I mean, I did my education in the San Francisco Bay Area, where the numbers are just so huge. You
Right.
feel like you can work forever, and there's so many different projects, and never know whether or not you're having an impact.
Right.
And I feel like the Northeast Kingdom, because we are such a small rural community, we actually have an opportunity to have really dramatic impact with a smaller amount of resources. And I think
Yeah.
that's in North Troy is even sort of a more microcosm of that, of here's this teeny tiny,
Right.
I mean, it's a North Troy Promise community, so all of the programs that we do are open to the whole Troy, like the whole, everybody that comes to the Troy schools, kind of that's how we're defining the region. But recognizing how isolated North Troy itself is and the transportation challenges that people have, we're really trying to
Right.
make the projects walkable to families that live in North Troy itself. So when you're just working with such a small area, you can really see the impact.
Yeah. Does RCT even visit Troy and North Troy
RCT does.
Yeah.
once a month?
Lisa knows more about RCT than I do.
It's not on a regular basis. They do bring people to medical appointments. I think if they need to go to BART, there's some specific areas that
But
they
they
work
don't
in.
do something like a supermarket run.
There's no shuttle,
No,
no,
there's no
it's
shuttle, no
individual.
regular shuttle. I think that has ended.
Is that something that they could be begged to participate in?
Possibly. They might be
Yeah.
good folks to invite to one of our meetings, actually.
Yeah, because even if there was something once or twice a week,
Right.
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
that line about you can't even buy an apple here.
Yeah, that was pretty earth-shattering to us,
Yeah, it's
yes.
pathetic,
Yeah. It's a
actually.
young
We
mom.
should be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
We really
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, it's sad.
And I don't mean those living in the community should be ashamed of that, but we should be ashamed of that
That
as
they don't
a
have
state.
access.
You're right.
Right.
That we have made it so difficult for people to have access to anything. We make it difficult for people to grow things. We make it difficult for them to work. We make it difficult to maintain a car.
Yeah.
We've made it even more difficult now to maintain a set of wheels with
Right.
all of the new requirements.
So transportation continues to be a big issue, but,
Yeah.
you know, our goal is to have affordable, walkable activities for young children and families to a community where they can grow and have some opportunities to have some fun.
Yeah. And I presume the school is really involved.
Yes, yes, the school's very involved. And they do have someone at the school who's been doing some fun stuff on the J-Rec path who brings kids there. So
Mhm.
we're hoping that that group at school will expand that to young kids and you know, just have some projects on the rec path in North Troy that maintains it. So
Does the school have a community garden?
yes, they do. And they have a nice greenhouse. Yes.
Ooh, now
that-
there's a resource.
Absolutely. So we will be growing plants with them in their greenhouse. It's, I think, underutilized at this point. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah, because one of the several hard things of living up here is it's such a short summer for growing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
a greenhouse.
Yes, they have a wonderful greenhouse. Yeah. So. And they collaborate with Greenmount Farm to School, so that's another great asset.
Yeah. Does anyone have a root cellar?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. That's
You
a great
can
question.
see the things that interest me.
Yeah.
Oh, a garden.
Right,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, at what point do you expect the community to run itself? Because here are you
Yeah.
guys, you sort of parachuted in,
Right.
which is fabulous.
Yes, that's a good term.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
And some other people did as well.
Yes.
But you don't actually live there. You
Right.
can't stay there forever.
Right. Well, we're hoping this coordinator will get the impetus going in the community, and hopefully, we've got some young parents that are really involved right now, very
Yeah.
excited. One of them works at the school. She's been a dynamo. So we're hoping that she can get other community members
Mm.
excited, and hopefully parents from the school. There's a lot of young children going to the North Troy school, so
How many kids go there?
I'm not sure.
Roughly.
We asked that question in a meeting, and I can't remember now, but it's
I
it's a
don't-
very active school. It's a wonderful school. So we're hoping that we can get the spirit and excitement growing,
Mhm.
you know, so that people get excited about wanting to do this.
And our funding time also drives a little bit of that. So we're sort of looking at two phases, where the initial implementation phase,
Mhm.
where we want to, build everything and get all of the recreation facilities, to a place where they're really accessible for young children and
Right.
families, looks like about 18 months. And then this phase 2 is kind of, okay, like you said, what happens when the initial seed money goes away and the initial
Mhm.
steering committee goes away? So I think we're really looking at that 18-month window, but as we're drawing the proposal, having a sustainability plan for at least 3
Right.
years. So we're looking at a 3-year project plan, and that halfway through that process, there'll be that transition.
Did the seed money have a time limit on it?
Yeah, it needs to be spent by December of 2018.
So you've still got another year and a half?
Yeah.
Right.
We've got this
Right.
initial 18 months, and then,
Yeah.
at that point, we'll be.
Is there a way that you could invest that money so that it's also interest-bearing,
No.
so that it's not the feds who get that money, but
Sadly, no.
a community that needs it gets
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, isn't that sneaky? But why not? I
Right.
mean, why aren't we able to be creative in that way? Because that's
Exactly.
clearly what private sector does, and it's
Yeah.
clearly what the feds do.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the Promise community goal is not just to have the outcome of that project, yes,
Right.
but also to build community capacity to
Right.
continue to tackle issues going forward. So it is kind of a very front-loaded, intense process. And the hope is that that's a different kind of investment where people are getting into the habit of going to meetings and sitting on committees and
Yeah.
doing that work, and that's the investment that will continue to live after the financial investment is gone.
Is there a city council kind of structure?
Oh, it's so complicated.
Yes.
What a surprise.
There is, yeah.
There's
Yeah, we did meet with them,
overlapping.
actually, the trustees we met with,
Yeah.
just to sort of unfold our project and get their blessing, and they seemed quite happy to have us in the community, and we're happy with the projects that we're unfolding. And
Is it two separate
So there's-
trustees or select committees?
There's sort of three different bodies. So there's the town of Troy,
Mhm.
and then within the town of Troy, there's two villages,
Right.
Troy Village and
North
North Troy
Troy,
Village.
yeah.
And North Troy Village is incorporated as
Mhm.
a separate village. So there's the village trustees of North Troy,
Mhm.
and then there's the town select board of the town of Troy.
Right.
And then we've also worked with the school board. So those are sort of the three civic entities that
Uh-huh.
have some domain over the area, and it's been fascinating to work with them, and we've had
Mhm.
very positive
yeah,
experiences
very
working
positive.
with all of
Yeah,
them.
very positive.
But it is a little bit complicated. You
Sure.
know, looking at like the ball field is one example, and looking at wanting to put sort of a natural playscape at the ball field for young children to have something
Yeah.
to do while their siblings or their parents are playing softball
Sure.
or baseball. Like, who owns that land? Well, we don't. Is
Right.
that village land? Is that town land? Is that school land? Is that private land? And that's been fascinating to sort of
Just trying to figure out all those pieces.
people have
That's a
different
lot of
Yeah.
fancy footwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all saying, what are we forgetting?
Yeah,
Who
and,
haven't we
and who are we
contacted?
going to offend if we don't do this right?
Yes, we've tried to be very respectful of
Yeah.
coming into a town where people have, their own thoughts about what
Sure.
they need and want, and we want it to be a respectful process and successful at the same time. So.
Are any of those select people willing to participate actively? Because that would be great if they were, and the school board.
Village trustee member and the town clerk came to one of our meetings, and
Yeah.
there's a select board member came to one of our meetings. Everybody's very busy, so there's a lot of email. There's a lot of people that
Sure.
chime in via email that can't necessarily be at the meeting. I think it's also okay that there's a space where new leadership can grow.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
those
Absolutely.
people are leaders in other areas, and so it's kind of
Exactly.
nice to have a space where where new people
Yeah.
can step up and get a voice and
Yeah.
take something.
Well, like I said at the beginning, 30 minutes goes really fast. So we're at the point of winding up. I think this is absolutely fascinating. And if in another year you guys would come back,
Mhm.
that would be wonderful so that we can see where you are then, which projects have really taken off, which
Yes.
ones are coming along, or which have changed into something else.
Sure.
That would be fabulous.
It's been an exciting process, so
Yeah.
thank you for having us.
So thank you for coming.